What I'm about to talk about today is so wrong, and most of you don't even realize it or you don't care. Today, I'm going to try to educate you. I'm going to try to make you care. And yeah, you might be thinking, like, damn, man, who are you to tell us what's right and wrong? Well, just a little background about me if you're new here. I've worked as a freelance photojournalist for nearly 2 decades for the New York Times. It's an institution built on journalism ethics. I went to school for journalism. I've had my writings on photojournalism published in the Harvard Neiman Reports. So yeah, I'm kind of like an Ivy League guy. No, I'm not. Full honesty, I dropped out of college, but I did go to school for photojournalism. I did study ethics, and I dropped out because I started working for the New York Times and I didn't want to lose my position. So hear me out today. Hear me out all the way through, and I'll end with some of my thoughts on Leica's Content Credentials Initiative and why it matters so much right now. So what sparked this episode? Why am I talking about this stuff now? I've touched on it before. What brought out the serious side of Justin today? Well, a few days ago, I watched a video. It's an old video by a popular YouTuber breaking down photography contest scandals. It caught my eye, got excited. I thought the photographer was going to rip these other photographers apart for their questionable ethics, not even questionable, wrong ethics. So the episode started, and his first two lead examples were about photographers cloning things out of their images, like the biggest no-no in photojournalism. Let me remind you guys, in photojournalism, one photographer cloned out a foot. Thought it was distracting, I guess. Another photographer cloned out some trash. I guess they also thought that was distracting. And the YouTuber's reaction, did he call them out? Did he explain why it's unethical? No, he kind of just shrugged, said no big deal, I'd probably do the same. And I was like, no. And this is a person with a huge following, teaching younger people about photography, people looking up to this channel. And it's just teaching terrible things, shameful things. And these weren't just everyday contests. Cloning of the foot, that was for World Press Photo. The other, a National Geographic competition. These aren't weekend Instagram challenges, photo club challenges. These are platforms built on truth, journalism, real life, accountability. So no, it's not no big deal. It's a very big deal. And why does this matter? Well, this isn't me being old school, bitter, gatekeeper, or just a purist. It's just about ethics in journalism, plain and simple. And in a time when the far right and far left, and now AI are blurring the truth, we as photojournalists need to be the ones holding the line. When you submit a photo to a journalism contest or publish it in a place like National Geographic that's supposed to be a journalism outlet, you're making a promise. That's why they have these rules. Those two photographers were both disqualified because it's right there in the rules. No removing things from your images. When you submit to these contests, you're saying this happened, this is real. And with that promise comes responsibility. Cloning isn't cleaning up an image, it's rewriting reality. And in journalism, that's not editing, that's lying, that's deception. And contests and these big contests can help boost these photographers and their careers. And a lot of you out there, I know what you're thinking. I've heard this argument before. You're going to say, but what about cropping? Isn't that manipulation too? No, cropping is interpretation. Cloning is deception. Cropping helps direct focus. It's a creative choice. It's a natural part of photography. But yeah, I get the argument a little bit, but even cropping should be done with fairness in journalism. Not everyone follows these rules. I also understand that. I've seen publications like National Geographic and their photographers lie. I've seen them buy access, steal shots, bully other photographers, and even sabotage others from trying to tell real stories and reach more people. So no, even at the highest level, it's not always ethical. I'm not saying that, but it should be. That's what I'm saying today. A line has to be drawn somewhere, and this is where it's drawn. It's like day one of journalism ethics. It's like scared straight material. You do this ever, you will be fired, you won't work again. Of course, that's not true because we see a lot of people who have done this, who have worked again, but there's a reason why organizations like the NPPA and World Press Photo allow cropping but ban cloning. There's a reason freelance photographers for the New York Times sign an ethics contract. Because if we can't be honest in journalism, what's the point? And this doesn't just apply to photojournalists, it applies to any serious photographer where trust is part of the relationship, contests, publications, documentary work. It's not the same exact standard as photojournalists, but we owe a basic level of respect to the people we photograph and to our audience. And with more people picking up a camera, I encourage your average person to go do a story if they're interested. But you need to understand a little bit about ethics, and you should apply these ethics to your stories as well, even in street photography. But when you're doing something a little bit deeper, it's important to ask people's names, learn their stories, at the very least, represent them fairly and honestly, because when photography becomes about getting the shot at any cost or winning a contest at any cost, we're not documenting the world, we're exploiting it. And I'm wary, I'm scared about the future. I've had conversations with my photography workshop participants. I've had conversations with people online. I've read comments about different scandals online. And I just think people are way off and not educated on this topic. And it just scares me for the future of photography, especially photojournalism, because the temptation is there and the accountability isn't. One glimmer of hope, one thing I'm excited about the future of photojournalism is Leica's content credential system. Their initiative, or whatever you want to call it. Leica was the first brand to implement this with the M11P, I believe. Just a little breakdown of how this works. But it's something I'd like to see more accessible to all photographers around the world and to all cameras, not just really expensive cameras. But essentially how it works is every time you take a photo, the camera embeds like cryptographic metadata into the file. Technical stuff, bear with me. Details like the camera model, the time, location, whether the image was edited or not, what was changed. So if you clone something out, the edit is tracked. This is interesting. This is what I'd love to see implemented across all journalism standards. Viewers, editors, contest judges, anyone can verify the image's authenticity. Love that. It's led by Adobe, Leica, and AP, and others as well. Just think of it as like a digital footprint for the truth. My final thoughts on this, I'm not saying you need to follow hard news rules all the time if you're a street photographer or an amateur photographer. But if you're calling your work journalism or entering contests that celebrate truth or represent journalism, you don't get to say, well, I'm just an amateur. No, you don't. Read the rules, read the guidelines, and you pros should be accountable too. It's not just the amateurs that are doing this. More pros are vulnerable to do these things as well. It's like walking into an MMA fight with a gun and saying, relax, I'm new. I'm the new guy here. I don't know. That's not how this works. We've created this weird culture where calling out unethical behavior makes you look jealous or bitter. And so that's why, I don't want subscribers from this episode. I'm not promoting anything in this episode. Nothing here. No ulterior motive other than truth. And with AI flooding our feeds with people already questioning everything they see, if we as photographers don't stand up for truth, who will? This isn't about gatekeeping. It's about integrity. It's about accountability. It's about protecting the trust, the fragile trust we have between photographer and viewer. So yeah, it's a big and I'm gonna keep saying that because someone has to. But yeah, the Leica content credentials, that's rather interesting. I'm interested in that. I'm interested in what you guys have to say. I'm interested in truth. So if this hit a nerve, or even if it didn't, drop a comment, let's talk, because this conversation is important. It needs to happen. Thank you guys for tuning in. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Nothing to promote. Don't forget to have a wonderful day.